Hey folks, welcome to another week of Spreading the Baseball News with Larry. I hope everyone is well. This week I'm going to talk a little bit, spend a couple of minutes about locker room culture, 更衣室的文化. The locker room is really important in all sports, and particularly in baseball because of the length of the season, 162 games traditionally in North America. So what goes on in a locker room is very important. The locker room in baseball is pretty hierarchical. Veterans really rule the locker room, and probably what most fans don't realize is the locker room is, as I said, controlled by veterans, not controlled or not ruled by the manager and coaches. So it's really a player's locker room. And as I said, it's the veterans, and if there's a team captain who set the rules of the locker room, rookies have very little say. One of the things I think I've noticed about this year in Taiwan is the Fubon Guardians have probably had some issues in the locker room. And one of the things also you notice, by the way, when you read interviews with players after they've retired, one of the things they really miss, by the way, is hanging out in the locker room. Because players spend, as I said, a long time together, 6 months a year, and it is like family. Another thing about the locker room that's very important is what goes on in the locker room is not shared with the public. And the public is not just news reporters, but what goes on in the locker room, what's talked about in the locker room, players don't discuss with their spouses, they don't discuss it with their girlfriends, and they don't discuss it especially with reporters. 队友就是跟在更衣室里谈的事情，就是不要跟他的太太说，还是他的女朋友说，尤其是不要跟记者说。And this is really important because it maintains a sort of set of privacy for the players. And again, they work out their differences in the locker room without it being aired for the public. One thing that sort of relates to locker room culture is how well players get along. And often one sees reporters or sportscasters watching a team that's doing well, for instance this season, the China Trust Brothers, and say the reason they are doing well is because the players like one another. I actually have the contrarian view, is that the reason the players might like one another is because they're winning. Where winning breeds maybe better relations, so to speak. And I think if you took that same team and they were losing, the players would not like one another. But I also think that you don't necessarily need to like one another to win. And there are two examples from about 50 years ago in baseball. The early 1970 Oakland A's, they did not like one another, yet they won. And the mid-late 1970 Yankees, again, a lot of players did not like one another, but they got along. And certainly Reggie Jackson was not the most favorite teammate at the time, but they still won, and often jokingly refer to those late 1970 Yankees as the Bronx Zoo. If some of you have some comments about the locker room culture in Taiwan, I'd like to hear it. Regardless, look forward to seeing you all next week. 谢谢大家收看，你们有什么看法，请你留言。下个星期见。